right? So in this case, the figure, do you see how by default it goes and puts in the top of the page, right? So as soon as I put H, in this case, with this content, it is possible to put the image here, right? However, if I make it to something bigger, let's say backslash text width, right, the H is not respected. It goes and puts it in a new page, right? Because even if it puts it in the top, it is not, there's not enough space to do it. So we also saw, much similar to the table environment, we can give multiple options. H, T, okay, which is the top, bottom, and we also have the capital, we also have the exclamation, right? Say if I do H, exclamation, right? In this case, H was already started, like, the suggestion of here was already considered by LaTex. However, if it's not, we can say H exclamation. However, it's still not taken into consideration. We can use the float package and use the capital H. Okay. But when you're using capital H, don't use it during your drafting stage because you're still writing the content. And if you use capital H, it has the same behavior as include graphics, right? As using just the include graphics. So you might have spaces in your document. Your page can abruptly end. So to overcome that, once you have finalized your content, you can wiggle around with your width and then try to use the capital H so that there's a neat flow of information in your document. Mhm. Now, one other thing that I wanted to show you is this draft compile. Now, once in your document, if you have a lot of images, when you recompile, it might take a bit longer. Okay, right now I have only one image. So, what the benefit is, once you know you have to put an image and what the image is, and it's picking up it all. And when you're editing the content, what you can do is you can use the fast mode. If the fast mode is activated, if I recompile, it immediately gives me the output because it does not actually display the image in my output. It just says, it just puts a placeholder. It says this is where your image will be, and this is the name of the image that will be displayed. Make sense? You can do something similar in the document class as well. In the document class, you can give the option of say draft. And when you do that, see, by default, it won't render the image in your output PDF. Okay, it won't render the image in your output PDF, but just gives the placeholder as to where the images will be. And inside the placeholder, it will just give you the path of the image. Okay. So let me keep this for your reference later on. But I'll remove it here. Okay. Now, another thing that we might do frequently uh, in our documents is to put images side by side or one below the other. So let's look into subfigures. Geeta ma'am, you had a doubt, right, regarding that images were not coming one next to each other. I have solved that. So let me first explain the subfigure concept, and then I will show what was the error in your code. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So subsection, subfigure, figure. So what I would like to do is I would want to put two images of two sunflower images right next to each other. Okay. To do that, we say begin figure All right. As soon as you say begin figure, it adds like all this include graphics, caption, and things like that, right? So let me just get rid of this entire thing. Now, by default, the figure environment just lets me put one include graphics command. But now here I would want two images right next to each other, right? So to do that, we will use the subfigure environment. So begin sub. Okay, so because I'm not getting this caption, I know that I need to import a package. Sometimes we get, okay, so sometimes if I just recompile, if an environment is missing, it will tell you which package to use, but sometimes it might not. So it's all about like a lot of Googling and like, just a lot of typing a few documents in LaTeX and knowing like which package to use. So unfortunately, there's no ready lookup available as to if you want to achieve this, what package to use, right? So sometimes the error in the description will tell you, but other times we need to kind of like uh, fend for ourselves, right? So the subfigure environment comes from this. So environment subfigure is undefined. So that tells me that I need a package. So to do that, I will use the package, use package sub caption. Okay. So sub caption is a pretty famous package that deals with anything to do with subfigures. Now, as soon as I do that, I still have an error. So because the subfigure takes in another input. Okay. I'll come to that shortly. Let me just add the include graphics. So apart from the subfigures, this another curly brackets, the rest of the functionality is very much similar to figure. Okay. So just like we would do in the figure environment, we will put the include graphics command. All right. Now let's come to this particular subfigure. Okay. Now in this, what I need to tell is, so assume this is the width in which I need to have two subfigures. So what I need to say is for this first subfigure, what percentage of the width will be assigned to it? So what width will be the first subfigure? All right. So let's go ahead. So what happens if I do backslash text width? Okay, let's just start with this. Okay, what is there here? Undefined control sequence subfigure. Okay. Ah, so it says undefined control sequence, illegal unit of measure. So illegal unit of measure. So that tells me here there is some illegal unit of measure. And because I know text width is the only unit of measure that I'm using, that there is some error here. So can you just tell me what the error might be here?
We had to give square brackets instead of.
No, it's curly brackets. So what it's telling me is if you read the error message, it says illegal unit of measure, undefined control sequence. So in this line, I'm only giving, there's only one part of the line that is giving some unit of length. That is this. So what it's
Width,
telling me is I have some error in this particular part.
yes, ma'am. Width is equal to zero point 0.3, something like that.
So if you, it's nothing to add extra. It's just like there is something wrong with just this part of the command.
Ma'am, spelling is wrong.
Yes, many a times we can make typos in our commands. It's text with, it was just missing a T. So the idea is always pay attention to the error message that we are getting, right? So all I had done is it was missing a T, and that's why it was telling there is no unit of measurement called text width. Okay, it needs to be text width. All right. So I have put in this subfigure and I'm saying this entire text width is for this particular subfigure. Now remember what I told you, the subfigure is very similar to the figure environment. So I can perform centering as well within it. Right? So if I just zoom out a bit, all right, you can see it's centered. All right. Just like the figure environment, we can add a caption. Caption, say one sunflower. Okay. Now this looks very similar to what we were doing up until now, right? Apart from the caption looks a bit different. If you see the figure number, it says A bracket. Okay. So let me zoom in a bit here. See, it says A bracket. Sunflower. We'll deal with that later. Now, the idea of using subfigure is we would want two figures side by side, right? So that implies we are done with this particular subfigure. Let's start with another subfigure. So begin subfigure. Okay. So right next to the subfigure, we need to specify the width assigned to the second subfigure. Let's again just do text width. All right. Let's not center this. And let's use the same sunflower, say include graphics. All right, and recompile. Right, what is happening? They are not right next to each other. Right, they're like one below the other. Now, in this particular case, the error is, see, in LaTex, it gives us text width amount of space to put in our content. Now, what I did is I assigned to one subfigure the entire width. So one subfigure will take up this entire width. Now, when the second subfigure comes, it also takes an entire width, right? Even if it doesn't, there is no space to put in this particular line. It has to go to the next line. So when you are putting subfigures, if you're trying to put the subfigures in the same line, you need to ensure that their widths, okay, so subfigure one width plus subfigure two width does not exceed the text width, right? So let's make these changes. Say instead, I make this as 0.5 text width and 0.5 text width. So don't get confused to the include graphics width. I'm just saying to the subfigure, I am just going to give half the available text width, right? Let's make it a bit more smaller, 0.3 and zero point 0.3.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Ma'am, when we are changing the subfigure width, it is
Mm-hmm.
with respect to text width, right?
Yes.
But when we are using this include graphics, width is equal to what is that width is being set, ma'am?
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so here too I'm using text width. You can see as I keep on changing this subfigure text width, the figures are getting smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you see like if it was 0.6 text width, right? The figure is a bit bigger, right? Where
Okay.
it is like, where it is like 0.3, it gets smaller,
Small. Uh,
right? Let me also add a caption to the second figure. I'll get back to the question. Just a minute,
okay.
please. And let's also center our second subfigure. Okay. Now, this text width, line width are all dynamic. That means when we are in the same document, when we are writing in the document as normal, this is the allocated text width. Okay. Now, when I say I'm taking 0.3, okay, let's just say, okay, this is split into 3 parts, right? So assume I am taking only 1/3 of the text width and giving it to one subfigure, and another 1/3 of the text width and giving it to the other subfigure. Okay. Now what happens within the subfigure environment? This becomes the text width. Right? So now what I'm doing is when I say width is equal to 0.3 slash text width, so I'm taking like again just a small area, and that is why this is the image size that you see. So let me go ahead,
Thank you,
see
ma'am.
what happens if I just change the width of each of the images to the entire text width. Right? So within the subfigure environment, this is the text width. Right? Now, if I just make this a bit bigger, you can see the images also get bigger because the width associated to the subfigure increases. Right? So now within the subfigure environment, the text width is this, but outside the subfigure environment, this is the text width. Does this make sense, or would you want me to repeat it a bit?
Ma'am, can you repeat it?
Okay, sure. So which part? Like just tell me like whatever is clear to you.
Ma'am, I also
Uh,
did the same thing, but still it is not coming side by side. Same code.
Uh,
Same, ma'am. Me also.
so what have you put your text width as? Like subfigure 0.45? Have you changed
Point
the
one.
sub? Mm-hmm.
I've
Point
used,
one I've put, but still it's coming down only. It's not coming side by side.
Okay.
I've
That
used,
is another, I'll just get back to explaining. So let me just, so another thing you have to do is you do not separate the subfigure environments by a space, right? When you do begin subfigure, you need to immediately start another. You shouldn't separate it by a new line like this. If you do, then they come one below the other.
Ma'am, I've not separated it, but still it's down only.
yes, ma'am.
Uh,
Yes, I got
okay.
it.
Can you just share your screen? Can you share your screen?
Okay, ma'am.
Should I stop sharing my screen or just let me know? Okay, I've stopped sharing my screen. Yeah, please share your screen and I'll take a look. Mm-hmm.
Can you see, ma'am?
Yes, I can see. Uh,
See, ma'am, it's like this.
in line 42, remove the caption. The caption should come inside the subfigure environment. So what happens is, yeah, so caption usually forces the control to go to the next line. You can see you're getting figure A, figure 2. Okay. Now coming, remove the, yeah, move that also to that, and then remove the empty line 43. Okay. Now it's coming next to each other,
Huh.
right? Maybe
Yes,
you
ma'am.
can make the image is bigger, like you can give like for the sub figure, you can give point 0.3 or point 0.4 text width for the sub figure. Yeah, and the other sub figure also, yeah. Right? Um, yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Nice photo.
Thank you.
All all right. Geeta ma'am, um,
Ma'am.
does that fix error on your end as well?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So what happens is we can give caption to the entire this thing, but when you put a caption outside the sub figure, it assumes that you're giving the caption for the entire figure, and then like yeah, it goes the control goes to the next line. Okay.
Ma'am,
Now. Mhm,
previously when you taught, I have
mhm.
some error like this. I mean, no, it's not the error. Like I
Uh-huh.
have included a section.
The code
Of,
that you shared earlier.
no, no, ma'am. Just while we were doing, I encountered this problem.
Uh-huh.
At the beginning when we did begin
Okay.
document, we have a
Mm-hmm.
section,
Mm-hmm.
then centering,
Mm-hmm.
then begin figure.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have had it blind text.
Mm-hmm.
Like 1 second, ma'am. Can I share my screen?
Ah, yes, you can.
1 second, ma'am. One
Yeah.
second. Is it visible, ma'am?
Um, I cannot see it.
1 second, ma'am. 1 second.
Madam, when you do that, can I just go ahead and explain and then I'll come back to you? Yeah, I just want to recap this figure part for the others.
No, just I'll show the error, ma'am. What is the
Okay.
problem
Okay,
mentioned?
I can see your screen.
This
Okay.
is the code.
Okay.
Okay, here in the output you can see I have the section name, then everything is empty.
Okay.
I have a text and how overcome this problem, ma'am.
So everything is empty where? Uh,
In a
uh,
section.
Okay.
After that, I
So
have plain text.
where is your blind text? Um, the blind text is commented out, right? Yeah, okay,
No,
okay.
no, no.
So
Here
remove
in the
the
begin
blind
figure.
text from your figure environment. So the thing is, I know it lets you do it, but the whole point of the figure environment is just to put the include graphics, right? So
Yeah,
put
yeah,
the
ma'am.
blind text outside. So what happens is when you put blind text inside the figure, it uses the blind text also as a floating part. You do not want like so much of your text floating around in your document, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so do not add too much. The only content, textual content in your figure environment should be the caption.
Okay. No,
Okay.
suppose
And now
if we
the reason
encounter,
everything, yeah, everything is centered, right, is because of the of the line 8 centering command. So when you say centering, centering is a switch command that implies that it will keep on centering everything unless you use a command to stop centering, like say justified or left justified or right justified. Okay. Now, if your objective is just to center the image, you should remove it, okay, remove line 8 and put it inside the figure environment. Okay. Now, when you put a switch command such as centering in an environment, because you're putting in an environment, the effect of centering is only limited to the figure environment. Okay.
oh, okay. Ma'am, the use of H I didn't understand, ma'am.
The use
H.
of H is just to say here. Okay. So if you remove H and then execute, right? Um, what happens is by default it will place the image at the top. Okay. So instead what you're saying is you're saying LaTeX whenever possible place the image here. Here implies where it appears in the order in which it appears in the code editor. Make sense?
No, ma'am, I didn't follow, ma'am.
Okay. For
Ma'am,
instance, if we
Can you share your screen and show me an
yes,
example,
yes,
ma'am?
yes. Okay. So for instance, here I have a begin figure here. Okay. A sunflower. If I compile, by default, where does the image come? At the top of the page, right? Now, if I say H here, the image comes at the position here. If I place B, okay, it goes to the bottom of the page, but also to the outside, okay? So what you can do is you can use, there's also P. P implies a special page for images. So basically the output is the same. So let me comment this out, right? And say B. Mhm. Okay, so B implies it comes at the bottom of the page. T implies it comes at the top of the page, right? This is the default behavior. H implies it comes exactly where it is in the code editor. If you see in the code editor, my figure should come between the two blind text, right? And that's where it comes here. Okay, so all these are just location specifiers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so B exclamation, let's just do 0.3. Yeah, so if I remove the exclamation, it went into a new page, right? I don't know if you observed. Yeah, it went into a new page. However, if I say B exclamation, I'm telling LaTeX, it is not just a suggestion. I want you to take it seriously and give your 100% attempting this. Okay. Then you can use the float package and use the capital H, which says LaTeX overwrite all your whatever rules that you have for image placement and listen to me. I want it exactly where it is in the code editor. I do not care about the spacing, my page abruptly ending and things like that. Okay, so there are three levels. One is the soft, where we just say H, T, B like that. The other is an extra layer of saying, I really want this happening. So we use an exclamation. And then the third, where we overwrite all the LaTeX rules and use capital H, right? So that in order to use capital H, you need to use the float package. Okay. Now coming to this subfigure, let me take you through this again because a few of you had doubts, right?
Ma'am, one doubt.
Huh.
Ma'am, how do I comment out an entire paragraph in Windows, ma'am?
So if you would want to comment out this entire paragraph, select it and do control forward slash.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, and if you want to uncomment this, select the same commented region and do control slash. Okay, alternatively, right click. No, there's no option. Yeah. Okay, so let's do subfigures again. Just a quick recap. So within the figure, so far we were just putting one include graphics and we were done with it. Instead, what now I would do is I'm now going to split my line so that we can show two figures side by side. So say I would want figure 1 here, figure A and figure B. I would want them side by side. Now to do that, we will use the sub caption package. Now the subcaption package gives us this environment called subfigure. A subfigure, within the figure environment, lets us put multiple figures. Okay. So, for instance, in this case, a subfigure. Now, apart from defining, let's say we are starting a subfigure, we also need to know how much space are we allocating to this particular subfigure. Okay. So, are we allocating 10% of the space? Are we allocating 11% of the space? Right. So, how do we do that? We do that using this way. Okay. Using the backslash text width or the line width. Now, a backslash text width by default gives us how much of the space is allocated for okay, how much of the space is allocated for the content. So this became too messy. So let's just do it again. So assume this is the space that is allocated. Now what I'm trying to say is for the subfigure, give 45%. Okay. For the other subfigure, give 45%. Right? So the remaining space, do you see the space between the subfigures? That's where it is. Okay. So we'll worry about the spacing between figures later on. But this is what I want you to understand. Right? When I say 0.45 slash text width, right? All I'm saying is from the text width, just take a fraction of it and give it to subfigure 1. And to subfigure 2, I've given the same text width. Now you don't have to do that. We can like change this text width to say 0.6 and this one to 0.25. Right? So what am I doing here? I'm giving a larger space to one subfigure and a smaller space to another subfigure. Right? Now, one thing you have to be careful is when you sum up the spaces given to the two subfigures, that should add up less than the text width. Okay? So, if I do 0.8 and 0.25, will with this configuration, will I get my two images on the same line?
No.
No. Why? We sum them up. The sum is greater than the text width, right? So that means you're not able to accommodate in that given space. So it goes. Okay. So let's do another one. So let's say I give 0.3 and 0.3. Will this work?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I get both the images. So that's the only thing you have to be really careful about is that we would want the sum of the widths, okay, sum of the spaces that we give for each of the subfigures to add up to less than the text width. Okay, if it goes to greater than or equal to text width, there is a good chance that your images will go to the next line. Okay. Now, coming to the text width command itself. When we are writing in the document outside any environment, right, the text width is basically the entire width of the page where we can see the content. So wherever the text goes, right, that is the entire text width. However, when we come inside an environment such as subfigure, the text width number changes. So text width is context dependent. So when you come into the subfigure, remember the subfigure is only getting 0.3% of the text width. So so the text width within the subfigure is just this area, this much, right? Which is only 0.3% of the overall outside text width. So when you use text width, it is context dependent. It is not like one number. If I say 0.3 times say 2 inch, this 2 inches will be fixed everywhere. However, text width is context dependent. Within an environment, what is the width associated? Okay, to subfigure 1, we have given only say 3%, 30% of the text width. That means inside the subfigure environment, our text width will be much smaller than the outside the environment. Does this make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that is why if I put width is equal to backslash text width, the image is smaller. However, outside if I put width is equal to, okay, say outside the figure environment, say outside this figure environment, if I put this, right, even though it's text width here, the image sizes are different because text width is context dependent. It varies based on where you're using it. All right. Now, let's come and deal with like these two images, right? Now, these two images, I have them side by side and say I'm using 30% of the images, right? Now, sorry, 30% and 30% of the text width. So I still have some space left, right? Now, what I would like to do is I would like to use the remaining space to separate the two images a bit more. Right now, the images look like they're sticking to each other, right? So what I can do is there are two ways to go about it. Between the two subfigure, I can just use the hfill command. If you use the hfill command, what it does is whatever extra space, whatever empty space that we have, it will use it all up. Right? Now the image is looking too spread apart, right? So hfill is good if you don't want to worry too much about coming up with a number. You can just use backslash hfill, whatever empty space is remaining, it will just use it to fill up between the two images. Instead, you can have a more fine-grained control using the headspace. You remember vspace command that we looked into earlier? It controls the vertical spacing. Headspace, on the other hand, controls the horizontal spacing. Okay, so here too, you can give it terms of the text width or you can like hard code it. So I just said 2 centimeter. Okay, you can say 1, right? How much ever you would want it to do. That's how you configure the spacing between the two images. All right. So we are running out of time. So let me just conclude this figure section. Um, by giving an overall caption to your image. Okay. So it is possible to give an overall caption. Okay. So caption, say, so overall caption, that is the caption for the entire figure. Okay. All right. Now, because each of these sub-entities are numbered, you have two options. Either you can label the entire figure or or. So you can also add label to the entire figure and also you can add label to your subfigures as well. So I leave you to do it. Okay. So it's basically whatever we have done inside the subfigure as well. You can add labels and then use it to refer them outside. So instead of figure 1, you will get figure 1a. So instead of figure 2 here, if I'm referring to first sunflower, you get figure 2a in brackets. Okay. All right. Now, the image issue, Geetam, the one that you had given, it basically had lines. The reason you were not getting the images, um, right next to each other were for two problems. One, I believe your entire sum of the text width, the entire width given to each of the subfigures was not less than text width. And another thing is There was like empty spaces between each of your subfigure environments. That's why your images were going one below the other. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
One I understood, that is the space you said. One more issue
Mm-hmm.
was?
I believe the sum, I think it was 0.35 or something, right? The initial text width.
Ma'am, I changed to 0.1, 0.25. So many things I did. Maybe it
Uh-huh.
is because of this extra line space, I think.
Extra line space. Yeah.
Maybe only that
Then
because this width I changed to point one,
okay, then
point
it
two.
is because
Like,
of the extra line. Yeah.
okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Because in the version that you had shared, I believe the width was 0.35, but I do not remember accurately. So it can be because of both or one of the issues. Okay. But as long as you understand why, that's more than enough. Okay. Um, all right. So let's quickly do, I think someone had asked it in the initial days only, how to add references to a section, right? Because we were doing only cross-reference, but not actual referring to a document elsewhere, right? Now, to add references, there are two things that you have to know. One is to manage your references, okay? Now, to manage your references, so what is management of references? Say I am trying to write a paper, okay? So I would want to look up a few articles, right, or other papers. So say we go to Google Scholar and say we are writing a paper on machine learning, okay? Okay, say we would want to, so we read this paper. Okay, this paper is relevant to whatever research we are doing. Okay, so the thing is, how would you keep track of all the papers that you have read and are relevant to you? Okay, a crude way to do it would be just open a Word document, just copy paste all the links of all the papers that you would want. Okay, alternatively, there are many platforms such as Zotero and Mendeley. So right now I'll just show you Zotero because that's what I am currently using. So what you can, yeah, what you can do is you can keep track of the papers that you have read neatly in a small little database of yours. Okay. So many a times, most of this Menly and all of it, they have this connector, the run extension, where you can like connect it directly to your browser as well. Okay. So the idea is when you come across a paper, you can add citations. Instead of adding citations directly to the paper, you keep track of it in Menly or Zotero. Okay. So in Zotero, what you can do is you can create your sub library. Okay, a library. A library is nothing but a folder. So you can either create an entire, um, there are two levels of organization. One is a library, and then the other one is called like a folder types. Okay, so let me just grab the exact name collection. Okay, so you have a library and you have a collection. Okay, assume that you have like two papers that you're working on, okay, on the same subject. So what you can do is you can create a new library, and on that you can create two collections. One is collection for your first paper and collection for your second paper. Okay, so what this does is you can keep track of papers relevant to paper 1 and paper 2 separately. So think of it as a folder approach. Okay, think of you creating subfolders dedicated for paper 1 and subfolders dedicated for paper 2. So what once you have this setup, right? So for instance, here my paper, I am like writing my paper. So whatever collection I have for this my paper is independent of say deep learning book. All right. What this also tells you is by mistake, when you are like doing a research, you copy paste the same paper entry to your database. It keeps track of all the duplicate items. Okay. So you don't keep on adding the same paper into your library again and again. Okay. Now, adding an entry. So adding an entry, um, it's like a UI based thing. So when you like a paper that you would want to, I believe there is a way to say I like this particular paper. Say I go to site. Okay. So what you would do in Word is you would just pick up the APA style or the Chicago style, whichever you would want, and paste it there. Instead, for LaTeX, we would want to pick up the BibTeX version. Okay. So BibTeX is a specialized, not a specialized version, it's a subdivision of LaTeX that deals with bibliography. Now, as soon as you see this version, it can be a bit daunting. Okay, so worry not, you will not be writing these records by yourself. Okay, so what you need to do is if you would want to add bibliography to your LaTeX paper, you would want to create a .bib file. A .bib file will have such records of all the references that you would want to make. Okay, let's take a look at this particular record. So each one, if you have a bit of programming background, this becomes easy. But worry not, I'll explain it to you. At article implies the entry that you are looking into is a article entry. And this is the label. Do you remember when we cross-reference, when we do section and all of it, what is the first thing that we do for a cross-reference? We define a label. Similarly, this is the label that is given to this particular reference. Okay. So if I would want to use this particular paper in my LaTeX references section, then I need to use this name, Mahesh 2020 machine. Okay. Then you have the title. The title gives the title of the article. The author gives the author, the journal where it was, the journal of it, and then the volume. All these are optional: the volume, the number, the pages, and the year. So these are the four important ones: the title, the author, the journal, and the year of publication. Now you have two options. Okay, whichever paper you would want to cite, go to cite, go to BibTeX, grab this entry, go to your overleaf, create a new file. Okay, call this citations dot bib, not dot tech, bib, and do a create. Now in your citations, you can paste this entry. Okay, now let's go pick up another paper. Say let's do, okay. So again, this is the paper I like. There is the cite button. Go to BibTeX and copy the record. Go here, paste it. You right? All right. So let's do one more. Okay. Let's do one for LaTeX. Okay. So guide to LaTeX. Go to BibTeX and copy. You see here in this, we only have title, author, year, and publisher. That's it. So these are the bare minimum. Some records have some extra information, some don't. That's okay. Okay. All right. So let's do a recompile. There is no changes. Okay, let's go to day 5 tech. Yeah. So there are no changes made in my document, right? So I need a way to tell LaTeX, okay, I have some bibliography section, like bibliography entries, and I would like to add it to my document. Okay, so to do that, we go to our code editor and say bibliography. Okay, so bibliography is a command. The input to the command is the name of your .bib file. So it's called citations. When I recompile this, has any changes been done? No, it's not. So what is happening? The apart from mentioning the bibliography, right? The the place where we have the .bib file, we also need to mention the style in which the bibliography has to be displayed. Okay, so bibliography style. So it can be plain, right? It can be any of these. So let's say IEEE transactions. Okay, so what happened? Let me add H here. So I'm just using use package float. Okay, to make it come where I want it. Anyways, so I have the references section automatically added to me. So just by adding this bibliography style and this bibliography command, I have the references section added to me. However, the problem is I still don't have the contents of it, right? I remember I have 3 entries in the .bib file, but nothing in my output here. So the idea is you should only include in your paper, in the references section of your paper, you should only have those entries that are actually cited in your paper, right? So you should not have all, you should not unnecessarily list papers that you have not cited in your document. So to do that, let's go and make our first citation. Okay. Say up top in the document, let's start with a statement to know more about LaTeX. Okay. Refer to. So what I would like to do is cite the LaTeX book that I have. Do you see this? Guide to LaTeX. So in order to make a reference to this particular entry, I need to pick up the name of the entry. That is the first item. Copy it. Go to your .tex file where you want to make a reference. Use \cite. As soon as you say the site, we get the options, right? So this is the one that I would want to put in and do a recompile. You can paste it as well, whatever works for you. Now, as soon as I added the citations here, to know more about LaTeX, refer to 1. So if you see, a record for this has been added in the references section. Okay. Now, can you tell me if I would want to add a reference to this particular record, what should I first do? Okay, say, let's use this. Say I would want to add a reference to this in my document. What should I do?
A bibliography style, then it's the style in which you want it to be displayed.
Perfect.
And
That will give me the references section, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And then the next command would be bibliography, and the input would be the name of the bib file, that is citations.
Okay.
And in the After the begin document environment, we give the name of the article, that is the first line.
Okay. So what, yes, that was a good summary if you would want to start, if you want to have the references section, right? So in order to get the references section, we have the bibliography command, which gives the path of the bib file, and the bibliography style, which gives the style, right? Now, assuming we have this and you would want to make a reference to this particular paper, how do you do it? Which command would you use to actually make a reference to this particular paper?
Slash site.
Yes, perfect. So, wherever you would want to make, say for instance, you would want to say towards the end, okay, let's just put this here. In, okay, so here in, I would say paper, okay, in, I would want to say um, the citation for the paper, right? So, I would want to say in paper 2, right? Um, we understand what paper is that. Okay. We review the machine learning trends. So instead of hard coding the value 2, you would want to add a dynamic citation, right? So the command is backslash cite, and the input to the command is one of the keys or the labels that you have for each of the records in your citation. So in this case, I would want to refer to Mahesh 2020 machine, and that's what I will do here, right? So as soon as I make a reference, a record for it is added to the references section. Okay. So this is the best practices for writing a paper. You should never have papers in your references section that you haven't made a reference to in the document. So that means in your citations.bib, even if you have records, it will not come out in your output until you perform a citation. Does that make sense? Right? So if you would want to do multiple citations, you can perform comma separated. You can see how, let me zoom in a bit. You can separate it by commas and the square bracket then enclose them. So in the cite command, you can give multiple labels to your reference records in your .pip. And all this become clickable due to hyperref. Okay. All right. Any doubts with regarding to the citations? I can like show it to you again.
No, ma'am.
All good. Anyone else? Geeta ma'am, Nandita, Miss Penny,
No, ma'am.
all good? Okay. Now, to coming to Zotero, where does Zotero come into the picture? Right? So one option is wherever we came across the paper, we just directly pasted the record into .pip file. Alternatively, we can transfer the record to so there was an option to take your citation and directly add it to your Zotero. Edit. Copy bibliography, copy citation. Okay, let's add a new. What entry is this? A book entry, right? So if you would want to add a new entry to Zotero, you would just do book. You can also look into other type of it. So say book, and you would want to fill in. Um, yeah, this is syncing. That's fine. Let me quickly look that up. Paste um, bib entry to Zotero. So for Mac, there's something called as bib desk. So I use that more frequently. Um, okay, import from clipboard. So I'm assuming if that allows, this should also allow. File, import from clipboard. So when you do import from clipboard, you can see the record has directly imported. Okay, so let me just backtrack a bit and explain that properly. All right. So when you're doing your research for the paper, what I do is whenever we come across, I use a reference management software such as BibDesk, okay, Zotero, or Mendeley if you would want. So instead of pasting the record directly into a .bib file, what you can do is you can keep track of it using this third party reference management. Okay. So once you copy the BibTeX entry, what you can do is come to Zotero and do import from clipboard. So what it does is it takes the BibTeX entry that you have copied and directly creates a record for you. You can see guide to LaTeX, and it automatically fills in the value from the BibTeX entry itself. Alternatively, what you can do is you can go here, create a book, and then you have to fill in the information manually, which is a bit tedious, right? So what let's take another record that we used from our BibTeX here. Command C, go here, import from clipboard, right? One import completed, right? So you can create records for this. Alternatively, you can also attach a paper. For instance, if you see here, I have something called as Andrew Ang Deep Learning Notebooks. Not only do I have the record for it, that is the title, the author, okay, I also have the associated notebook. So I don't need to put it in another folder somewhere. Obviously, it is stored in a place in your computer. But what I'm trying to say is it's all hooked up in one place. You have the reference and the paper, and you can just toggle between them, right? So at this time, I am happy with the records that I have. Okay, so let's delete this entry. Okay, so say I am done researching for my paper, I've written my paper, so I'm writing my paper and I want to add references. To do that, you go to File, there's something called as Export, Export Collection. If you export the library, then it will export everything. Instead, what you can do is Export Collection. So format, it depends, right? So we are writing the code in LaTeX, so I would say BibTeX, and then don't export notes. Okay. Okay. So what happened here? Let me save it. I forgot where I saved. Let me just see that. Okay, it's in downloads. So go to my downloads. So here I have the .bib file readily available for me. Okay. So I can go to my overleaf, upload. All right. And then go to my document. Instead of using citations, I can now use my paper and recompile. Now I might get a few error because like one of two citations is not there. Okay. All right. Now, can you tell me what error I'm getting here? So it says site, like, it says this particular name is not defined. It is defined, right, in my citations.bib. Why is it not working here? All right. So just because you have a .bib file in your new project or in your LaTeX project, it does not mean that it will be automatically picked up by LaTeX. It will only pick up whichever .bib file that you have given here. In this case, my paper. So even though these entries are there in citations, it is not picked up by my .tex file because this .tex file is referring to my paper.bib. Now, if you see the naming convention that Zotero outputted, it is a bit different, right? So let's go back to our defi.tex and use this new keys. Okay, we compile. You can see how the references section has been added. Okay. Now, if you feel some inconsistencies, like for example, GC woo, JW funk, so what it might be is you might have to edit out your bibtex a bit. No, that's just the IEEE transactions way of displaying it. Right? So the references work, but if you would want to say make any changes in the last minute, you can always like do it in your .bib file. Like for example, this was in 2020. Like you can just say it was a mistake on somebody's end. Right? If you make any changes here, go to your .tex file and execute. You can see the content changes. All right. But avoid doing such changes. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing it in your reference management, making manual changes here rather than a one-shot change here. Now, Zotero and this, um, any doubts? If you want me to show another example, I can do that.
Ma'am, can you show another one?
Okay. So what part did you understand? Did you understand like how to copy the BibTeX and paste it in Zotero?
No, ma'am, that's what I didn't understand.
Okay, that's what you didn't understand. All right. So let's look for another paper on, okay. All right, this particular paper. Oh no, that's latex, not latex. Mhm. Okay, let's do. Yeah. Let's say I'm happy with this paper. I would want to keep track of it. Okay, either to cite it or to read back later on. Okay, so what you can do is you can go to cite, go down to BibTeX, right? you can copy this BibTeX entry. So Control C, go back to Zotero. Okay, say my paper is the collection or the subfolder which tracks all the papers related to my research paper titled My Paper. Okay, so what I can do is go to File, do Import from Clipboard. As soon as I do that, whatever record that I had copied, you can see the title is Generative AI, the author is this, the journal is this, volume. So all these fields are automatically filled in and a record for this paper has been created. All right. Is this part clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if you were to do it manually, say this BibTeX for some reason is not available or whatever might be the reason, what you can do is you can click on the plus button and manually create an entry. Say you would want an entry for a book. Then you specify book title ABC, right? You would want to specify the author first name, say Apoorva, last name, say Apoorva, okay? And then you would want to fill in the date and the publisher, right? So the publisher, say XYZ, and the date, just put 2025. Okay, so instead of manually creating a record for a paper that you're interested in, you can always copy the BibTeX entry and import it into Zotero. So you don't have to do all this manual typing. Okay. Now, once you are done listing all your papers, once you are done with your research phase, will come like, you would want to start working on your paper, right? So that's the time when you will actually make your references. Say you have a related work section, say you would want to start making references there. So to do that, you have to set up your .bib file, is it not? So say you have tracked all the papers in Zotero or Mendeley or whatever software, all of them will have an export option. So either there's export library. So library will export, think of it as a parent folder. So it will export all the blue folders that you see listed here. I do not want that. Instead, I would want to export only those records that are associated with my paper. So I go to the My Paper subfolder, right click and say Export Collection. Right? Here you can select the format. There are multiple formats available here. So we will use the BibTeX format. Now to each of these you can add files, notes, we'll come to that. Instead, we will say, okay, I don't want any of these fancy things. I just need the BibTeX records. So I say, okay. So what this does is, let's rename this to another paper. So wherever you would want it to store, it will download the .bib file. You can see another paper.bib. It has all the entries, right? All the entries in this particular collection of yours as a BibTeX record. Is it not? Is this part clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So once you have the .bib file generated from your reference management, you can go to wherever you're writing your .tex. So in our case, overleaf, upload it. Upload, select files, okay, select the .bib. You can see another paper.bib has been uploaded. Now, once you have the bib, we go to the file where we want to make a reference. So we add the bibliography style, we add the bibliography. Now here, the bibliography, the file path to a .bib file, here another paper, and then we execute. You make your references the same way, the cite and all of it. Just make sure whenever you're citing, you go to the corresponding .bib file and make sure your cite keywords or labels match. right? Alternatively, if you want to use your reference management to the fullest extent, any paper that you come across, you will like download from archive or things like that. What you can do is you can right click that particular record and do add attachment. Okay, so attach stored copy of a file. So what happens is wherever you have a record, you will have the corresponding PDF as well. So you don't have to look outside. You can do all your reading and referencing all in one place. Okay. Another option is URL, right? If you have some other GitHub links or any other external links, you can also associate to URL, right? I believe like you can also import, right, from an existing BibTeX file or across Mendeley, right? If you say if you're using Mendeley and you would want to move to Zotero, what you can do is you can export from Mendeley and give it to here, Zotero. I would say reference management is something like your bookmarks, right? So why do you use bookmarks? So you don't have to keep looking for the same thing again and again. So whenever you come across a web page that is relevant to you, you bookmark. Now, how do you organize a bookmark? In your bookmarks bar, you can create subfolders, right? Saying, okay, this is where I'm going to track all the machine learning stuffs. This folder, I'm going to track all the LaTeX stuffs, right? Similarly, in reference management too, you can like create your own collections, track not just links, but research papers. Finally, when you are done tracking and you're ready to write your paper, you can export it. From the perspective of LaTeX, you will export all these records as .bib records. Okay. I hope this is clear.
Ma'am, in the previous example, when we used my name,
Mhm.
what was the, why did we get an error there in the
Okay.
previous exam?
So I understand the confusion. It's the same paper, right? But before that, we were using the citations.bib. Okay. In citations.bib, do you see how the record, the label names are? So for instance, here it is WHO 2018 development. However, when I exported from Zotero, um, it is the same this thing, but the naming convention was same, the one that Zotero gave this record. WHO underscore development 2018. Okay, whereas that one was WHO 2018 development. So the naming convention used by Google was different from what Zotero used. So that is why when I changed the source of my bibliography, this particular name no longer existed for LaTeX. So that's why I had to change to this. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, we have few minutes left. So I want to just show you how to use some templates from different publishers. Okay. Now, remember when we were doing document class, I showed you all the document classes that were available on CTAN. Okay, so if you for now today's we will look into IEEE um, transactions. Okay, let's have the package documentation ready. Let me go ahead to our first. You remember the first, um, yeah, main.tech, right? So this one has title, everything related to it. So let me add to this the references section. Okay, perfect. Now, let me change this to from article to document class IEEE tran, right? That was the document class name was IEEE tran, right? As soon as you change the document class to one given by IEEE transactions, you can see so many things changed, right? This is what I've been trying to tell you, that when you use a publisher specific document class, you don't have to worry about styling, right? It's all given there for you. So let's add some blind text to a document so it looks more full. So let's do use package blind text. Okay. Right. Now, I know the author section does not look exactly right. We'll come to that shortly. But apart from that, the styling of our abstract has changed. By default, our document has two columns, right? So all these changes are done, and you can see the section numbers are automatically changed to Roman numerals. I remember in the first class, a lot of you had these questions, right? How do we change the section number, subsection number? If you see here, I believe this is a subsection. Now, this subsection has alphabet numbers. All this is taken care by the publisher themselves. Okay. Now, if you would want to write a paper, right, a best way to start off is, so let
Excuse
me
me,
go
ma'am.
to your, Mhm,
I'm sorry for the interruption. With your
mhm.
permission, can I leave this online class now? I have some emergency work.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. I appreciate your patience for today. Yeah, I understand it's a Saturday. Yeah.
No, no, like we have some work with regarding in school with my son. That's why.
Oh, no worries. Okay, no
Uh,
worries.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Okay. So what you can do is at the point of creating new project, right? We created a blank project. Instead, you can create a template. Okay. So this is a good place to start exploring your research writing journey to some one of the publishers. So if you see journal articles, right, you will see a list of them, or you can do view all as well. Down here, you can see there are a lot of them. Okay. Alternatively, say we are writing to IEEE, and we can just search for that, right? So all these official are just like, that are officially released by IEEE themselves. So you can see this demo file has the starter, this has the skeleton. So we can just start with this particular conference paper. Okay. Now you have two options: view PDF. So you can just take a quick look as to what this this starter project will contain. All right, this is all it is. And then you can also view the source, which gives the .tex file for you. Now, if you're happy and okay, you would want to take a look at this, what you can do is you can do open as template, right? So what we have is a sample paper using IEEE transactions document class. And if you read the paper, it's basically giving you instructions on how to write the paper in itself. Okay. Now, if you take a look at this file, don't some of the commands already make sense to you, right? We know the document class, we know the use package. Have we not used some of these, right? And also a bit of Xcolor when we are doing tables, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So if Okay, so one thing is whenever you are writing using one of the publisher document class, always have the package right next to you. Okay, the package documentation. So you can always look up. See, for example, class options. Do you remember in the article we gave some options, right? Like font size, 12 point. Now here, if you use the IEEE transactions, you have options for font size too. So the default is 10 point because that's the one in solid. Okay. You also have the option for 9 point, 11 and 12 point. Right? Do you see the draft? We have used the draft option. IEEE transactions also gives the draft. The one that is highlighted in dark is the default value. That means if we don't specify any of these values, by default, final is chosen. Now here we have the options for conference, journal, tech note, peer review. See, okay. So what this one is by default is journal, right? So instead, we will use the conference. So that is why we explicitly say as the option conference. Right. Now uh, obviously you will need to spend some time to read everything in detail. However, coming down here, we have already dealt with title command, right? So title is basically the title here. We also know the thanks command. If you see whatever we put in thanks comes down here. You see this? Identify applicable funding agency, right? So it adds a footnote. So before we were using in the author section. However, here they are using it in the title section. Okay. But at least we know what this thanks command does, right? And the and command in the author section. Now you remember when we used and we had multiple authors like 6 authors, by default LaTeX was giving the author names were in 2 lines. Say if we had 6 names, right? It was in 2 different lines, but it had this V formation, right? However, in IEEE, they themselves have taken care of the alignment and things like that. All you have to do is go here, plug in your data. Now, the problem is some publishers do give some extra commands. See, for instance, you have this IEEE author block, right? So, this is not something that we actually used, but is given by the publisher. So, only for these commands, you can look up in the package documentation as to what you would do. Or you can use this template to figure out what it would do. Okay. Now, we also have the make title command, which we know what it is, and the begin abstract. Now, apart from that, this IEEE papers, they have this keyword section. So for that, the IEEE document class has introduced this IEEE keywords environment. Some publisher specific environments and commands will be added. Okay. But we know how to use sections. We know how to use subsections, right? Itemize. We know how to use the list, right? Now they themselves say what, um, um, yeah, when it comes to references, they themselves say how to do the reference, right? Use one and not equation one or equation one like this. So you can see they might be probably using the ref command. Okay, so they have using the eq ref command, which is another alternative of ref. Okay. So you don't particularly need the hyperref. Mhm. All right. Yeah, if you come to figure reference, like you see, they are using the ref command in this case. Okay. Now you might see this tilde. So when you see some LaTeX code, you might say fig dot tilde ref fig. This tilde is just to tell LaTeX not to break this. Okay. So if I just write fig dot ref fig, say this figure number is 1. So when it renders like this. But say there is not enough space for this entire fig 1 to fit in the line. What happens? LaTeX splits it, right? So the line ends with fig dot, and in the next line you have 1. Now this does not read well. What we are telling LaTeX is, if you have to, if this entire phrase does not fit in one line, then do not break it up here. So instead, what it will do is, it will consider this one entire thing as one unit. So it will not try to break it. It will say, if there is not enough space to put this entire thing in that particular line, it will just go to the next line and say fig 1, like this. So it will just go to the beginning of the line and say fig 1 here. It won't break up this phrase. So whenever you don't want the phrases to be broken up, you can use this tilde symbol. Okay, so we also know the references, right? It's using the cite. So here they have put directly the bibliography records, but you can always use the .bib file, right? Now, if you come to figures and tables, so we know they include graphics. Instead of like using centering, they're using centerline command, right? That's fine. We know the caption, the labels, right? Hopefully, if not all, you should be little familiar, right? How are you all feeling it? Do you not feel like, okay, I know these commands, right? Especially with the tables, the H line we have already encountered, right? The text PF for bold.
Ma'am, what does C line do?
So the C line is again another type of line. Um, so it says 2 to 4, right? So column 2 to 4. Huh. So H line by default will draw the line across the width of it, right? You can use the C line command if you would want to, if you want to draw the line only across few columns. So H line draws the whole width, whereas to C line, you can say, okay, start from column 2 and go up to column 4. So that is why you get this shorter line. So it can give you fine-grained control as to where the line should start from and where the line should end. Right? Hopefully, the IEEE sample paper that I have shown here does not feel too alien to you, and you're able to understand some of the commands that we have already used in our workshop, right? Um, if a few IEEE commands seem alien to you, you can always look up the documentation, especially if it starts with IEEE. It is something that this particular document class is offering. Okay. That's pretty much it for today. Vidya ma'am.
So now we are at the concluding session. So participants, If you have any doubts or anything, please clarify. So this is our last opportunity. And anyway, you can get in contact with Apoorva ma'am directly also. She'll be very happy to take any query anytime.
Ma'am,
Huh.
Yes.
I have a question, ma'am. In the preamble of this template,
Mm-hmm.
they've used a package called site. So does
Mm-hmm.
that have anything to do with the bibliography?
Yes. So the site is an extra package that helps like with the bibliography. Um, so we generally don't use it. Like in the workshop, we haven't used it, but you can take a look up into the package documentation of the site. Right?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. It gives some improvements over the normal citation handling that we have. Yeah. Like you can see the small space is added after the comma, so it adds, like, you remember when we use book tabs, okay, when we're creating table, the book tabs version had, like, some decoration right over the normal table, like the data was more spread out and things like that. Similarly, the site command also can provide some enhancements such as this. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other doubts? Okay. So before we go ahead, can we have a group photo? Can everyone switch on your camera? Just wait for Anu, Feni. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So, can someone speak about, give a feedback on this 5-day FDP? You can share anything. You are okay with it?
Actually, it is very helpful while writing a research paper because I mostly found so many difficulties in formatting for each and every different journal. You have to go for different formatting. You have to write all the things in the different format. So this will very helpful for me in the particular future for the research area.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would also like to add all the sessions were really useful, but the thing is, I mean, I missed a part of it in between because of some things coming up in the department. I think going through your videos, I hope I'll make up for it. And I have recently started using LaTeX. I found it very difficult. I thought it was very difficult for me to learn. But I had just one experience for about on one paper, and this actually helped a lot. I mean, a lot of doubts got cleared. Yeah. So it was really useful. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Apoorva ma'am, you want to say anything?
Oh, no, I appreciate everybody's patience. Thank you. I know it's a Saturday, and I do know that the workshop came right in the middle of the day, and I understand. So that is why ma'am has been very kind enough to record the sessions and, like, to put it up for you all. So I do hope, like, you incorporate LaTeX. I know the first paper will still be a bit difficult, right? Because you're still like understanding. So I would recommend to write a few sample papers, like, any of the papers that you come across. I would suggest that you just try to translate it into LaTeX, a paper or two, just to get an idea. Because what happens is, when you're trying to write your own research paper, you're like trying to figure out the content that you're trying to write, right? On top of that, remembering the LaTeX commands is a lot, right? So if the content is already given to you and you're just going to copy paste it, it takes away half the burden, right? So the first paper will still be a little challenging, but after that, right, it will be very helpful. I wrote my master's thesis, the entire thing, in using LaTeX. And after that, I wish I could use it today also, but unfortunately not all publishers have adopted LaTeX as a publishing mechanism. I hope they do too, because right now I'm using Google Docs and it is very, very hard. I'm trying to bring LaTeX to Google Docs. So I'm using extensions that let me put LaTeX equations in Google Docs, right? So I'm using extension that will give me this site cross-referencing that we do, right, in LaTeX in Google Docs. So I can see myself wanting all these elements in like Word and Google Docs, right? So I hope you all like don't give up, right? Keep on using it, right? First two papers will be a challenge. After that, it will be second nature. Yeah, that's it by
Thank you,
my
ma'am.
end. And yeah.
Yeah. So anyone else?
Ma'am, will we have such more sessions regarding this in the future, ma'am?
Yeah, we'll try to get through Apoorva ma'am only. As she is an AI person, so we can try getting more and more workshop through her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Yes. So I have, ma'am, I hope it's okay. So I have a platform of called Webinar Park, through which I've been this thing. I can share the WhatsApp channel to my company. So what you will get to know is all the workshops that I am conducting, as well as I am preparing a current LaTeX course to be released on Udemy. So when it's ready, you will get to know. So if you're interested, like, I can share the WhatsApp channel and you can follow me there. Yeah.
So is it the same WhatsApp group what we are having right now, or
So it's a channel, madam. So it's like how you
okay?
can subscribe to YouTube. So similarly, you
Mhm.
can subscribe to this WhatsApp channel. So if
WhatsApp
there are
channel.
any updates, I post it there, and you can, like, you get a notification, like, yeah, like somebody puts a status, you get to know, right? So similar to that. Yeah.
Okay, so you will be sharing the link in the WhatsApp chat.
Yes, yes, I will share the link in the chat.
Anyone else?
Miss Anu, you answered a lot and you asked a lot of questions. Maybe you can share your opinion.
Was a very nice session, ma'am, because I haven't like this is a like I am completely new to this. Uh, I have like the first like even when Vidya ma'am posted this on our group, I just saw it, so I found it interesting. So like, but then when I got in also, I was like, this is initially it was very complicated, but later on, like I started liking it as well. So the session made it easier. So it was
Thank you.
very useful. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you, Anu. Okay, so well, so as we come to the conclusion of this 5-day FDP, I take this opportunity to thank Ms. Apoorva for her dedication and what do I say? Her time, effort, and expertise in the subject, which she has shared throughout the FDP. And also conducting an FDP through an online mode is very difficult. And and I know you are very capable of doing it because I have already attended this workshop 1 year before. So I had already experienced, and the way she takes, the time she takes for each of the commands, explain each of the commands, and then, okay, check with the chat, okay, any query on that. So let me first clear it before I go to the next session. So that was very, you need a great dedication for that to conduct such kind of FTP online. So I thank for your invaluable contribution for making this FTP a success. And I also extend my gratitude to all the participants who has taken an active participation in this complete FDP. So once again, I thank you, Ms. Apoorva, for your invaluable support for making this FDP a success. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for the opportunity. And also a big shout out to all the participants, right? So many a times when I go to a workshop, there are hardly any questions, right? So the minute you ask me questions, it keeps me motivated to kind of like make the sessions better. So thank you for that as well. Okay. Good luck to everyone. Okay. Thank you.
So wishing
Ma'am, if I
everyone
could,
yeah. Yes,
I
ma'am.
am sorry if I could ask a small doubt which was arising in one of the papers that I've been doing. Sorry, I think just a minute.
Sure, ma'am.
Actually,
Sure, ma'am.
yeah, actually, there was one template which I was using, and this indentation is coming for every paragraph. I tried using that slash no indent command, but still I think there is a little indentation coming. How do I mean, remove it, or is it a part of that format? Uh,
So if an indentation comes in the beginning of every paragraph, you suppress it with no indent. If no indent is not working, then it is a feature of the document class that you're using. What you can do is you can double check this by seeing a template of the document or of the document class,
okay.
right? So what is the template name?
Madam, I don't know actually. I
Okay,
am not aware. This is the second time I'm using. So
okay,
I
okay.
just opened that .text file, and
Mm-hmm,
I started just creating those sections,
mm-hmm,
and I've just put in the content.
mm-hmm,
But then when I compile it, I'm using overleaf.
mm-hmm.
And when I compile it, I think that indentation I was not able to remove even with the slash no indent.
Like
So,
if you see this IEEE, every paragraph starts with an indentation.
okay, okay, okay,
So
ma'am.
it's a document class behavior as well. Because usually if you want to remove, we use no indent command. If it is not
Mhm.
working, then it's overwritten by the document class. So that's what my opinion is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, before I conclude, so we have two more processes in this. One is the feedback form, which you all have to fill, and another one is the certificate. So before the certificate, please try to send the link on which you were working. So whatever paper or half done, how much ever you have worked on, please try to share the overleaf link through the email ID. And yeah, so certificate, it will take 1 week's time. And the feedback maybe by tomorrow, you will receive in through your email ID. So please fill on the feedback form and then wait for a week for getting the certificate. In case if anyone has not received, please let us know through the email itself or even on the WhatsApp group. That's fine. So yeah. So actually, I forgot one more thing. Last one. This all this was successful because of our director, Dr. Shaila Bantnoor, from BMS School of Architecture. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck to everyone. Good day. Bye.
Bye. Bye.